summary of what we had studied before the vacation started. So this slide I will just share with you now. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the summary slide which talks about all the geometric intuitions that we had discussed. So we had seen that there is a strong dependence between the frequency response and the location of poles and zeros in the Z plane. And we can try to play around with the poles and zero locations and design suitable filters which has our desired frequency response. So we can build many kind of filters. One of the filters that we will look at now is a resonator. We can look at band pass filters. We can look at resonators. We can look at oscillators. We can design the reverse of a resonator, which is a notch filter, and we can look at the modification of the notch filter, which is the comb filter. So, as we had discussed earlier, that the procedure of designing a filter is based on location of the pole and the zeros. So the poles, they affect the gain of the frequency response or the magnitude of the frequency response. So whenever you have a pole at a particular angle, the frequency response peaks at around that location. So if you want to suppress a particular frequency or you want to filter out a certain frequency, then you can place a zero at that particular angle. So suppose you want to suppress a frequency component at omega equal to omega naught, we should place a zero at an angle theta equal to omega naught on the unit circle. So if it is on the unit circle, the zero, then the vector zk to z, that will be of zero length, because zk is the point where the zero lies. That means the zero lies on the unit circle, and z is also the point on the unit circle. So zkz becomes equal to zero, and the length of the vector becomes zero. That implies that the frequency response at that particular frequency is equal to zero. So you can remove a particular frequency. That is the philosophy of a notch filter. So designing notch filters with zeros placed at appropriate locations is something that we will look at. Then if you want to enhance or amplify a frequency component at omega equal to omega naught, you should place a pole there. But you can't place the pole on the unit circle, so you have to place it inside the unit circle but close to the unit circle. So if it is close to the unit circle, then the length of the vector pkz becomes very small, and the magnitude of the frequency response, which is inversely proportional to the length of the vector pkz, becomes very large. So we had looked at all these ideas earlier before the Dashara holidays, and today I'm just trying to summarize. And we had also looked at a case where we talked about the symmetry properties for complex conjugate poles. So complex poles or zeros should appear in complex conjugate pairs to assure that the system has real coefficients. So if your h of n is supposed to have real coefficients, then the complex poles and zeros of h of z should appear in conjugate pairs. So the frequency omega is defined as an angle with respect to the positive real axis. So all symmetries should be defined with respect to the real axis. So you will get a magnitude frequency response to be an even function and the phase response to be an odd function of frequency. So if you have complex conjugate poles or zeros, then you will ensure that these conditions are satisfied. So poles or zeros at the origin do not influence the magnitude response, okay, because their distance from any point on the unit circle is unity. So the length is unity, therefore neither uh, the magnitude response is not disturbed. So poles or zeros at the origin don't disturb the magnitude response, but they change the phase response. So if you have a pole at the origin, it adds a linear phase of omega radians to the phase response. So generally we introduce poles and zeros at z equal to 0 to assure that total number of poles and zeros in the ratio of the two polynomials, that is the denominator and the numerator, they are equal. So n stands for number of poles, m stands for number of zeros. To make the number of poles equal to the number of zeros, we introduce poles and zeros at the origin.
Hello,
So
sir.
yeah,
Some people are still waiting outside the meeting to
okay,
join.
okay, okay, okay. Let me check. Hmm. Okay, let's continue. So let us start with the first example. So this is a discrete time resonator. So all of you have studied RLC circuits and you have come across a resonator. In your ET lab, you might have seen a resonator in RLC series circuit. You have done an experiment in the ET lab. So either you have calculated a factor called the quiescent factor or the quality factor or Q factor. So you have done that calculation of the Q factor. You have calculated the bandwidth of a resonator. So those things you have done for an analog filter designed with passive elements like R, L, and C. And here we will build something which is a digital filter, and we will try to build it with two complex conjugate poles. So you want to emphasize the magnitude response at a particular frequency. That means you want the system to resonate to that frequency. So your filter should resonate to that frequency or it should amplify that particular frequency. So your magnitude response at a particular frequency should go very high. So you will choose appropriately two complex conjugate poles having a magnitude r into e to the power j plus minus 5. Are you able to see this? So there are two poles, P1, 2 equal to R into e to the power plus minus J5. All of you are able to see this? So
Yes, sir.
we'll build the system function Hz by introducing two complex conjugate poles. So if you see there in the denominator, there are two poles and they are complex conjugate. So So R goes from 0 to 1 and phi goes from 0 to pi. The input-output relationship, that is, if you want to write a linear constant coefficient difference equation, then you can write this as yz by xz, and you can take inverse z transform, and you can find out that this is the difference equation. So, and if you want to take the inverse z transform of this particular polynomial using partial fractions, because it has two complex conjugate poles, using partial fractions you can find that the impulse response turns out to be this. So phi is a constant, so sine phi uh, is here, and you have sine of n plus 1 phi divided by sine phi. So this is a damped sinusoid. So if you would have seen that, because we are talking about poles inside the unit circle, these are complex conjugate poles inside the unit circle, the system is stable. So if the system is stable, then the response, the impulse response will be a damped sinusoid of frequency phi. Okay. So this is a discrete time resonator built with two complex conjugate poles. Okay, shall I move ahead?
Yes, sir.
So we'll see the pole zero pattern and the magnitude response, phase response, and group delay for a particular example where r is equal to 0.9 and phi is equal to pi by 3. So we have two poles, 0.9 e to the power plus minus j pi by 3. So you can find out all these quantities by using the previous equations that we had. Oh, so we had the equations for calculating the magnitude response, phase response, and group delay. So using those equations, you can find out that the complex conjugate poles, they look like this, plus phi, minus phi on the uh, on each side of the x-axis. So if you see here, this is P1z and this is P2z. These are the two vectors. So it has this particular frequency response. And if you look at this frequency response, the magnitude function is an even function of frequency. And this is the phase response. So for the particular example, we have taken pi to be equal to pi by 3 radians. So let us look at this. So we have the angle of the phase response coming like this. So at the origin, you see that this is a odd function of frequency. And the group delay turns out to be like this. So let us go back to the example. So the peak of the magnitude response can be shown to be located at this particular frequency omega c. So this can be calculated by looking at the magnitude response equation. So you can input the uh, value of r and phi here and put z equal to e to the power j omega. So you will get h of e to the power j omega. From this magnitude response, you can calculate the peak of the magnitude response, and that turns out to be this particular frequency. Cos of omega c is equal to 1 plus r square by 2r cos phi. Now 1 plus r square is greater than 2r always for r less than 1, and we have cos of omega c greater than cos of phi. So the peak is lower than the pole frequency for phi greater than 0 less than pi by 2, and higher than the pole frequency for phi greater than pi by 2 and less than pi. So uh, if your poles are going closer to the unit circle, then the peak occurs at omega c approximately equal to phi. So if you see here, this particular omega c is located here. So that should be located around pi by 3. So can you see my cursor? All of you can see my cursor?
Yes, sir.
So this particular peak is located at around pi by 3. And if you see here, the phase response is going 0 at around pi by 3. This is a discrete time resonator built with two complex conjugate poles. So is this okay? Now to obtain the bandwidth, so you can calculate that h of e to the power j5 mod will come out to be like this. If you replace in the previous equation, uh, omega equal to phi. So we can normalize the gain of the filter by choosing V naught as this. So the gain of the filter will be 1. The width of the peak is determined by the 3 dB bandwidth. So what is the width of this peak? So what is the 3 dB bandwidth of this peak? That means from this particular frequency, what is the fall on either side of the peak? We will say that the bandwidth is defined as 1 by root 2 times this particular peak. So 3 dB bandwidth can be approximated whenever h of ej omega mod goes below or goes to 1 by root 2 times h of e to the power j omega c mod. Okay. So on either side of the peak, you can find out what is that distance on the x-axis. Then you can get delta omega, which is the bandwidth. And that is approximately equal to 2 into 1 minus r. So if you see here, the bandwidth is dependent upon the pole location. Okay. So if you make the pole approach the unit circle, the bandwidth will become smaller and smaller, and the peak will become sharper and sharper. So this particular filter is called a resonator because it has a very large magnitude response around the vicinity of the pole locations. So we have seen for the example, when pi was equal to pi by 3, the peak of the resonator occurs around pi by 3. So the inverse of this resonator is a notch filter. So we have built the resonator with complex conjugate poles. So let us see how to build a notch filter. So is this slide okay? Can I move ahead? Okay. Before we go to the notch filter, we have one special case of the resonator. So if the poles of the resonator are placed on the unit circle, that is, you have a marginally stable system. So if we set r equal to 1 and b naught is set to a sine phi, then we obtain h of n as equal to this particular term. Right hand side has a sine of phi, something sine of a function of phi. So we can generate a sinusoidal signal using this particular difference equation. So this is your impulse response of that system. It has a sinusoidal term here. So if you plot this, it turns out to be a right-sided sinusoidal signal. So we can generate a sinusoidal signal using this difference equation. So the frequency of oscillation is determined by the angle of the pole. And this is an oscillator. So this is a limiting form of a resonator. And the system is marginally stable because the poles are on the unit circle. If the poles go out of the unit circle, then it is an unstable system. So this is the limit of a resonator. So the resonator will behave like a oscillator once the poles are kept on the unit circle. So this chapter is giving you a geometric intuition behind design of filters. So it has various applications, for example, in radar or in sonar navigation. It has so many applications. You want to isolate a particular frequency, you can use an resonator. If you want to tune on to the frequency reflected by an incoming aircraft, you can use this resonator. You can build resonators with uh, in cascade, like you can build a simple second order resonator here, and then you can build them in cascade, and you can make a very strong resonator. So you can think of applications where in radar or in sonar, you want to home in onto your target and you want to listen to your target. So you try to remove all of the frequencies and try to zone in on this particular frequency. So you use a resonator. So these are the applications of uh, like building these kind of filters. Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
So let us now talk about the reverse of the resonator. That means to build a filter which will remove a particular frequency or come close to removing a particular frequency. So that kind of filter is called a notch filter. So why it is called a notch filter? Because if you plot the frequency response, it looks like a notch. So how steep that notch is, that is decided again by the design of the zeros in the system. So now, earlier case we had an IIR filter with two poles, complex conjugate. Now we will build an FIR filter with two complex conjugate zeros. So last time we had this. This was the uh, system function for the IIR system corresponding to a second order pole, or using two poles to create a resonator, a second order IIR system. Now we can build something which is an FIR filter. Okay. Again, this is a second order filter, and it is a reciprocal of this guy. So the frequency response plots for the FIR system are horizontally flipped from those in the earlier figure. So the magnitude response of this filter contains two sharp dips at omega equal to plus and minus 5. Okay. So if we cascade several second order sections, then we can create FIR filters with better stop bands. So we are trying to suppress some frequency. Has some applications, for example, in image processing. In image processing, you have these satellite cameras which rotate above the earth, and cameras are powered by some source of batteries. Now, can cause like if there is some kind of a power source, then it can lead to corruption by the uh, frequency, which is the 50 hertz frequency. So to remove that interfering frequency, we can use a notch filter. We can build a notch filter. So in image processing, you have applications. This notch filter. So again, if you see the zeros location, that is deciding where notch filter. So can I move ahead? Goes on the unit because here we don't have the stability because in a stable, you can even place the zeros on the circle. So the filter will have perfect nulls at certain frequencies, and therefore these frequencies are called notch filters. So the second order FIR notch filter has this particular transfer function or system function, and like how sharp is the suppression, that is a matter of design. So uh, sometimes the bandwidth of the notches can be large. For example, you see this dash plot. This is the frequency response of a typical bandwidth or a notch filter. You look at this uh, dash plot and you look at this solid plot. Okay, so this is just the reverse of the resonator. So the solid plot is something that we would like to prefer. Although for the dash plot also there is a perfect null at this. For the dash plot, the variation in the neighborhood of the null is very sharp. Okay. So the problem with FIR notch filters is that the bandwidth of the notches is large. So a simple way to create sharper notches is to place the zeros on the unit circle, and so you can have two complex conjugate. Uh, so you can like complex conjugate zeros on the unit circle, and you can also have two complex same angle is close to zero. So you do something like this, which has both the number. So it on the pole and the numerator is close. This filter will have a much sharper notch as compared to FIR having a system response function like this. So let's look at a small example. There is no R, so the radius of the zeros is assumed to be 1, whereas in the denominator you have the R factor, where R should be strictly like less than 1. So I think this is clear. Can I go ahead? So shall we do an example just to understand? So we have built a second order IIR filter, which is a resonator. We have built a second order FIR notch filter, and we can combine poles and zeros to make sharper notch filters. So let us look at this particular example. And here we have R as equal to 0.9 and phi as 0.4 pi radians or 2 pi by 5. radians. So the gain B naught is chosen such that the maximum magnitude response is equal to 1. So the maximum magnitude response is 1 here, and you can see in the first plot, this is the magnitude response function of a notch filter. It has two nulls and minus 2 pi 5 and 2 pi by 5 radians. So, so if you see the first plot, it gives you the magnitude response. In the second plot, you can see the phase response. So the dash plot is corresponding to an FIR notch filter, and the solid plot refers to this particular G Z zeros. Is this clear, everyone? So we have these plots. So you see again the magnitude response is an even function of frequency and the phase response is an odd function of frequency. Okay. So we have learnt about resonators, oscillators, and now filters. So
Sir, your voice is breaking. You are not properly audible.
so I'm using actually. Are you able to hear me clearly, everyone? Are you all able to hear me?
So sometimes it's lagging a lot.
Okay, let me change my SIM card. Okay, let me change my SIM from where I'm connecting. Let me try to connect another SIM. Okay. Hello?
Yes, sir, audible.
Yeah, so is it better?
Thank you.
Is it better? Are you able to hear me better?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So this resonator has a single pass band and the notch filter has a single stop band in the interval 0 to pi, right? So we have seen the magnitude response. If you see in the interval 0 to pi, it has a single stop band and the resonator has a single pass band from 0 to pi, a single pass band. Hmm. So sometimes we want multiple stop bands and multiple pass bands in the frequency region. So there are applications that require simple filters with multiple pass bands and stop bands, which are known as comb filters. So to design a comb filter, we start with a filter having a single pass band or a stop band, and then we play around with the system function until we achieve as many number of pass bands and stop bands that we want. So generally, this frequency response He to the power j omega is periodic with a period 2 pi radians. So we'll see how to create multiple stop bands or pass bands. So we will replace z inverse by z to the power minus L in h of z. So the formula of h of z, or in the formula of the z transform, we will replace z to the power minus 1 by z to the power minus L. To create L number of pass bands and stop bands, we will do this kind of thing. So we replace each unit delay, z inverse is a unit delay, by an L unit delay, z to the power minus L. And we obtain a new system which is h z to the power L. Okay. So you're trying to do what is called interpolation in the time domain. So I taught the properties of the Z transform. You can take a review of the properties of the Z transform. So we are going to use the interpolation formula because we are going to derive this particular Z transform. So H of n by L. Okay. So we try to build another impulse response G of n, which is a dilated version of the original impulse response H of n, by inserting L minus 1 zeros between successive samples of H of n. So the Z transform of such a system, G of n, how will it look like? So that can be derived as G of Z. If you replace in the formula for Z transform Z to the power minus 1, Z to the power minus L, then you get this particular term. This is H of Z to the power L, where L is an integer. So the frequency response G of e to the power j omega can be written like this, which is equal to h of e to the power j omega L, because this is equal to h of z to the power L. So this frequency response, when you plot, you will get repetitions of the frequency response h of e to the power j omega inside the frequency band 0 to pi. And there will be L repetitions. So if you dilate in the time domain, you are compressing the bandwidth in the frequency domain. So we'll just have a look. And because of the periodicity property of h of e to the power j omega, you will get repetitions of the spectrum inside the original band, original frequency range. Okay, is this clear? Shall I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
So g of e to the power j omega is periodic with period 2 pi by L radians. So each new period is compressed version of the old period. Okay. And the corresponding impulse response g of n is an interpolated or a dilated version of the original h of n. So you are introducing L zeros between consecutive samples of h of n. So you can see that it will turn out to be like this. So how does the magnitude response look like for g of e to the power j omega? So to consider that, we will first look at the magnitude response of the original filter h of n, that is mod of h e j omega. So this is a single notch at the origin, and this is the magnitude response of such a filter. And now if you introduce that interpolation by L, which is an integer, you will get mod of g of e to the power j omega. So if you see, it is introducing spectrum replications. Okay, so these are identical spectra which are getting repeated inside this frequency range, minus pi to plus pi. So this dashed spectra is getting repeated here. Because of the periodicity property, you are able to achieve a comb filter. So it has multiple notches in the frequency range minus pi to plus pi. So this is a comb filter. So let us just look at this example, very simple example. So let us consider a first difference filter. H of z is equal to 1 minus z inverse. So if you analyze this, this is just x of n minus x of n minus 1. So you take a look at the inverse inverse Z transform of this, you can obtain the impulse response. So that will be turning out to be the first difference. So h of z is 1 minus z inverse. So if you look at g of z by introducing z to the power minus L instead of z to the power minus 1, then you will get a comb filter g of z equal to 1 minus z to the power minus L. So for a particular example, L equal to 8. So g of e power j omega is periodic with period 2 pi by 8 radians. So in this example, L is equal to 8. So you can count the number of spectrum replications. So this looks like a comb, therefore it is called a comb filter. Okay. So mod of h j omega is the dashed line, and mod of g of e to the power j omega is the repeated spectra. And g of z is equal to 1 minus z to the power minus L, where L equal to 8. So this is the angle or the phase response. So the original phase response of h of z was this guy, this dashed line, which is odd function of frequency. So you see that these are the replications, and g of e to the power j omega is periodic with period 2 pi by 8 radians. So both the filters have a linear phase response. So I think with this I will stop today, and in the next class, tomorrow is a holiday, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So I think we'll meet on Thursday. So on Thursday, I'm going to push for another topic, and this is this idea, relationship between magnitude and phase responses. So some of you are in my seminar course, if I remember. So I have given a small assignment to you in the seminar course about a particular paper by Oppenheim. It's the same Oppenheim whose book you are reading in DSP Oppenheim, Alan Oppenheim. You're reading the book Oppenheim and Schaeffer. So there is a paper by Oppenheim. The title of the paper is The Importance of Phase in Signals. So it's a very interesting paper. For those who are doing my seminar course, I've given a small assignment for you guys to just do. I can tell you what that assignment is, and we can take a look at the importance of phase. why phase is so important compared to the magnitude, because you are always worried about the magnitude. You are designing filters based on the magnitude response, but turns out that the phase is also important, sometimes more important than the magnitude response. Okay, so I think today we'll stop and we'll meet on Thursday. So because we have like lost so many classes because of this autumn break, I'll try to take some extra classes if you permit me, and then we'll try to move forward, because we are supposed to cover a few more chapters in the course. So if it is agreeable to you, then I will take a few extra classes. Okay, fine. So is it okay? Shall I stop today?
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you.